Hey everyone, my name is Matt Cremona.
And I'm Matthew Morris.
And welcome to the Matt and Matthew Show. Today we're going to take a step back and we're going to look at our shops. We're going to look at a little bit of shop organization, shop storage, things like that. Just ways to get the shop to be a little more efficient and a little bit more inviting to be in.
So what Matt really wants to tell you, or doesn't want to tell you, is that we spent the past 3 days cleaning our shops up before we even shot this episode. Because let's be honest, all of our shops get a little bit dirty and need some organization. We really actually didn't do that, but let's take a look at some of this cool things. So Matt, I know you've been working on a new piece to help you organize in the shop. What is that?
Yeah, so lately, actually the last couple of days, I've been building this little cabinet thing here. And as Matthew mentioned, yes, I did not clean my shop. I'm actually in the process of cleaning my shop right now. So what I'm really working on doing right now is like kind of just going through everything, finding out all the things I don't need, finding the things that don't have a good place to go, and kind of figuring out a good way to put everything away so I have more room and less clutter. And this area over here was a very cluttered space for me. This used to be an old workbench I used to have, and just had a top and one shelf on it, and just had piles and piles of stuff on it all the time, and didn't have a good way to organize anything. So here I went ahead and I did a few different things. I added a bank of drawers, which gives me a lot of great storage. And the problem with drawers is, or at least initially, is you kind of have to figure out what we want to put in them. So most of these are still empty right now, but as I go through my shop and as I find things that don't have places to go yet, I'll actually put them in the drawers, and then eventually there'll be less clutter in the shop. I also add a little area here for my computer and my stereo, and eventually I'll have a little door on here to make that a little bit cleaner, as well as the drawer faces on the drawers. And over here, I had my computer on that table before, but it was kind of uncomfortable to use because you couldn't sit underneath the table with your legs. So I had this little desk area here, and to not kind of to not like miss out any extra storage, I added some shelves down at the bottom there. They're about 6 inches deep, and they're perfect for finishes or smaller things you don't need that often. So this is going to work out really well for me. I'm really excited to get it finished and get it full of stuff. So Matthew, I know you made something really recently too that's really purpose built. What was that?
Yeah, thanks Matt. I made a dedicated sharpening station. So as you guys can see, I'm standing in front of it right now, and it's I'm calling this my like hand tool corner here. Besides, forget the fact that there's lots of clamps over here. Yeah, but I built this.
Is that all the clamps you have?
No, it's not. There's another 100 over here. Yeah, and I'm not kidding about the 100 part.
Let's not forget about that too. Let's come back to the clamp rack.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah, so I built this dedicated sharpening station, and I wanted it next to my hand tools, so I'd always want to be able to, or I'd always easily be able to get over here and sharpen. And this cabinet is very similar to the rest of the cabinets in my shop. And it's plywood. Most of it's Baltic birch plywood, the real Baltic birch plywood, not the home store Baltic birch plywood. But it's screwed together, and just like Matt's new thing, I have a bank of drawers. And what's awesome about the drawers is you can get so much stuff inside them, and you get so much more square inches in your shop when you build drawers. Versus just trying to have shelves, because shelves you can put tall things in, or open spaces you can have tall things in, but the drawers are really awesome because it allows you to organize a little bit better. And that just sounded...
Yeah, I like those too because you can pull them out and take them places with you.
Yeah, I really wanted that for this one because so much of the stuff that I'm doing here when I'm sharpening is I'm trying to get to either stones or different things for helping me set my angles, and I wanted to bring them up on top of the table. So yeah, so then I got my sharpening pond up here on top, and what's cool about this table is I went with a phenolic top, which is different than I've ever done before. I usually just do 2 layers of MDF on top, but I did the phenolic because it's got a plastic covering on top of it, and I got water here, and so I didn't want water to get onto MDF or plywood and ruin the piece. So instead I did the phenolic plywood. I put some T-tracks in it as well, and you can open up the door, take the sharpening pond down, put it inside for storage. And I don't have a grinder, I have a work sharp, but you could pick the grinder up if you had one and put that on top and do a little bit of grinding. And of course, you can just leave it empty so you have a nice flat surface in your shop to put stuff down on. So, is this cabinet that you just made now, Matt, is that the only, have you made other pieces for your shop as well, or is this like your first major piece of storage besides like your hand tool cabinet?
I've made, let's see, I made a few different things in the shop as, you know, purposes present themselves. So I had my outfeed table, and that was about 2 feet wide and the full length of the table saw, and I've got some drawers in there and an open space. And I made a couple of carts for my drill press, my mortiser, and I threw some drawers in those as well. And for my spindle sander, same thing. And probably the biggest one though is my assembly table. That's got a lot of storage underneath it. So on both sides, both of the long sides, I have drawers, and then on the ends, on the end caps, I have these really narrow shelves, about 5 inches deep, and I store finishes on one side, and then on the other side I store fasteners and things like that. So that's been working out really well for me. It's really a lot of stuff in one place, especially on that assembly table. And whenever you can get those drawers in those other places, that's really handy as well.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed about your cabinets in your shop is that yours are really nice and really nice looking and made of really high quality materials. Mine are not. I usually go as cheap as possible with the materials as more of a functional thing so I can get back to working on other stuff. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm not trying to judge you.
No, thanks, Matt. I love you too, man. No, well, let's be fair about the statement. It's a good point. So usually, there's two parts of it, right? So when I made this cabinet, I wanted a flat top, especially if I take this off, and for some reason, if I wanted to put a piece of granite down or something and flatten the bottom, the sole of a plane, I want to be able to put something down that was on a flat surface. So yes, the cabinet has Baltic birch plywood, but that's really only in the most important sections of it. The drawers, as well as the divider between the storage and the drawers, that's actually a cheaper plywood that was sitting around here from some other cabinets I had made. So it just depends on what I'm trying to do and where, I guess. So yeah, I guess a high-end plywood, the really nice Baltic birch is on here, but for the rest of them, I've bought the home store version of Baltic birch, which is not the same as Baltic birch you would buy at a lumber yard, a high-end lumber yard, or Woodcraft or Rockler or something like that. Like you, this is not my first shop. And in my old shop, I had some cabinets that were one size, and when I moved out of there, I had a commercial space, and I bought the house and I moved into the garage that's set back from the house, I was able to recycle a lot of the plywood that I had previously used by just unscrewing everything, recutting it, and then using it for new boxes for my cabinets. So for me, that had been really useful, and so I've continued that for that reason as well.
That makes sense. That's a good point too. So you can use a lot of reclaimed materials for this kind of stuff.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about even in our first episode, right, Matt? Which was, the upgrade path. So your tools may change throughout the course of your time building furniture and doing woodworking. So maybe perhaps your cabinets would need to change around those tools.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a little. At one time, my mortiser and my drill press are both on the same. Now they're on two separate ones. One that's more size for the mortiser, one that's more size for the drill press. And I took that one that was a little bit larger and I put my multi-router on it because it was the right size for the multi-router. And so I just built two other ones instead.
Yeah, I had the same kind of thing when I first started. I just had like big tables, and I put all my benchtop tools on the one table, and it was kind of cluttered, and different heights weren't that great. But I went to a cart system, at least for the mortiser and the drill press. My miter saw used to be on the same table as both those tools, but I have yet to build anything from a miter saw, and it's currently right here on the floor. That's where it lives. On the floor. Mine's
under the bench, so I completely understand. Now on your cabinets, when you built yours, like on this one for instance, I think the feet are locked, but I put casters on all these things too, because I want to be able to move it around the shop. Now for this one, not as much necessarily, but for the other ones, like the one my drum sander's on, that one gets pulled out because if I'm drum sanding, I'm not going to drum sand with the back of the drum sander to the wall. I need room for that piece to come out. So that's why I put all mine on casters. I can move them around, get to that one spot in the shop. That's the right spot for using that tool at that time. Put the dust collection on and then use that. So for yours that you've built, have you put casters on them as well, or just feet?
Yeah, this one right here is the first one I don't have casters on. All of the other ones have casters, and I'll have them in two different varieties. If it's an actual cart I want to wheel around quite often, it'll just be casters on there. But like my assembly table is technically on casters, but I have it on there with those leveler feet things too. So it's actually up on the levelers right now off the casters, and if I ever need to move this thing for whatever reason, I can just drop the leveling feet until the casters make contact with the ground and I can wheel it around. That's the same thing with my outfeed table as well.
Yeah, that's really smart.
So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the stability of those levelers, but you get that mobility. It's kind of an annoying mobility, so it's not something you want to be doing a lot, but if you ever need to move that thing, it might take about 5 minutes to get all those things turned down and be wheeling around, but it's nice to have that there, just in case.
So due to the power of editing, I'm on the other side of the shop right now, and I've got a couple of different cabinets over here as well. And this cabinet I'm standing in front of right now used to be where the sharpening station was. And I made a big mistake when I built this cabinet because I did not put casters on it. I thought, oh, it's always going to live in that corner. And I did that over, maybe 2 years ago. And sure enough, it got moved. So I'm so glad that somebody invented furniture dollies, because that was the only way this cabinet was getting over here from the other side of the shop, be it only 20 feet apart in distance. But so this guy should have had casters on it. So I really am digging your idea, Matt, of putting the casters on and then grabbing the leveling feet and then lifting the cabinet above. That way, if you ever need to, you can do it, drop them off and move it around.
Yep.
It's the best of both worlds. I like that. This cabinet, yeah.
You heard it here first.
One of the fun things about this cabinet for me is that I got this rubber surface on top of it. This is just that recycled rubber that you can buy from Rockler, and I've cut it to fit on top of the cabinet here. And I like using this because when I'm building furniture, I'll take my parts, and instead of putting them on the assembly table or the bench or something, I'll put them on top of this little rubber top here instead, and it provides a little bit of extra protection for them. Because the last thing I want to do is be cleaning up a whole bunch of dings and dents, steaming that out, sanding it out, or whatever. So it's a nice feature, something that I liked a lot too. And same basic thing, like for my cabinets, if you noticed in the sharpening station, I'll put MDF on the front and then take amber shellac, and I think it gives it a nice little look for the shop. So yeah, I guess they're a little bit more fancy, Matt. I hadn't thought of it that way. To me, I always thought of them as being less fancy, because sometimes you see people and they spend a lot of time building out their shop furniture and the stuff looks fantastic. So I've always thought mine was a lower quality cabinet than that. But this one's out of that cheaper plywood, and it's the center divider between where the door opens, and I have storage inside there, and the drawers, which are pull-out extensions. You can see the curvature in the plywood. It just curved. It changed shape after it got screwed in. But everything's still able to open up nicely. These full extension glides. Now, do you use those as well?
Yeah, I do. I use those full extension drawer slides. I use the cheaper ones that I can get at my home center. I think they're maybe like $8, $9, $10 a pair, depending on the length. And they work out really well. I know you can get like the fancy like auto closing or the soft close ones. If you want, you can do that, but I just get the really cheap ones, and they work just fine.
Yeah, basic's better.
So I know your clamps are a lot more organized than mine are. As you can see, they're all over the place here, but let's look at yours, because I know yours is really cool and really fancy and sweet.
Yeah, so I've got a couple different clamp racks here. This guy's a lot of fun. So this clamp rack I first saw, I don't know, about 2000, I believe. No, I'm sorry, not 2000, 2010. And I took some classes at William Inc. School, and he and I are friends now. And he's got a clamp rack there, and you may have seen it actually. Mark Spagnuolo from the Wood Whisperer built one for himself too. I built this thing a long time ago as well, and they're fantastic. There is literally, it's hard to see because the cabinet right here is in front of it, but there's 100 clamps on this clamp rack right now. And 100 may sound like a lot, and it is.
That's a few, yeah.
I can actually...
What? That's a few clamps.
Yeah, quite a few clamps. But like these blue guys, these Harbor Freight specials, when I'm doing laminations, bent laminations, I'm gluing up 3 laminations at one time for the back of a chair, I can pull out every single one of those blue guys. Or if I'm doing glue ups on another lamination for legs, for instance, on a piece of arts and crafts furniture, you know, all of these Jorgensen F-style clamps will come out and get used all at the same time. So it's just really nice. It doesn't take up a lot of space in the shop. It's just a couple of I have 2 2x4s and some 1/2-inch pipe for doing plumbing. And drilled some holes, put them through, put some lag bolts through the 2x4s into the 2x4 studs right behind them. And the thing holds up really well. So why haven't you built a clamp rack yet, Matt?
Well, I kind of have. I've got my parallel clamps. They're up on their little rack there. But I have 2 more parallel clamps that don't fit on that rack. And then I have all my F-style clamps just hanging out over here with some C clamps, and they're just hanging there. I need to make some kind of actual solution there. One of the problems I had with the clamp rack where it is right now is that my table that used to be here would kind of get in the way, so I couldn't put like a long clamp there. Anyway, so maybe with this new table I'll have a little more of an opportunity to make an actual rack for some of those smaller F-style clamps and those couple of parallel clamps.
Again, by the power of editing, I'm on the other side, back here where the sharpening station is, with a better view of this clamp rack. So the other clamp rack I made myself, between getting some pipes at Home Depot and some 2x4s and some lag screws. But this clamp rack is not homemade. You can make them at home as well using some plywood or whatever you want to do, but this is a store-bought clamp rack instead. But it's got all of my parallel clamps and then my Jorgensen steel beam clamps as well. These things are phenomenal. 7,000 pounds of force at the maximum compared to the... Was that an evil laugh I just heard over there, Matt?
Maybe a little evil. You're gonna squish the world.
Yes. Yeah, compared to the 1,000 pounds of force here. And there's actually a reason I have these guys. When I'm gluing up seat blanks, and the seat blanks are 2 inches thick, the thicker something is, the more force you're supposed to be using. That's according to that. I can't remember the name of the book. Maybe you remember, Matt, but if we don't, we'll put it into the comments for the video about wood and gluing up wood and all that stuff. It completely escapes me. But so yeah, some more up here, and then some more smaller ones here right below my hand tool cabinet. So, and you've got your parallels hanging up, but your F-styles are not?
Well, they're kind of hanging. So what I have is a clamp rack, 4 parallel clamps that I used to use in my old shop, and that's holding all my F-style clamps right now. Holding. I'm using the term holding lightly.
Oh, okay.
They're resisting gravity. That's about it.
Right. So, and I guess this whole the theme of today is, organizing not just tables and clamps, all this stuff, but our tools as well. It's nice to have a certain spot for everything in the shop. I mean, don't you agree, Matt?
Yeah, that's a lot of it. A lot of it is like having a spot for everything and having everything in its place. And one of the things that I do, or I try to do, or I was trying to do, is every Sunday night I would come out in the shop and I'd be out here, and before I went in for the night I would vacuum the shop and do a little cleaning, put things away, and that really helped me to know like what things didn't have an actual place yet. So if I was continually putting away or shuffling around a tool, I knew I didn't have a good place for it. I needed to make some kind of storage for it. And at least with the hand tools, it works out a lot better because...
Vicky!
Hello.
You didn't answer my calls.
We have a special guest today on the show.
Yeah, let's get that guest in.
Here's this guest. So, what
Come
do we have to
on.
say about shop storage and shop organization?
What I have to say about it?
Yeah, what would you have to say about it?
Matt doesn't do it.
I don't do it. All right, that's very nice.
I don't know.
I appreciate that.
You do it on Sundays.
I do it on Sundays. Even she knows. All right, so getting back to the topic. So as I was saying, every Sunday I did the cleaning. I went through the shop, I vacuumed, I put things away, and that helped me know like where my deficiencies were in storage. So if I didn't have a good place to put something, I knew that thing needed like a cabinet or I needed some space for that thing. Because if I'm just shuffling it around all the time, it's not really productive. So anyway, to the hand tool cabinets, that's another one of those things where I spent a little time, maybe like a year ago, to actually make all the little tool holders in here, like the little square holders and the, you know, whatever, the marking knife holders and things, just to get them like actually like in a place so that I had somewhere for them to go. And if they weren't up there, I knew that they were out on the bench for some weird reason, and I knew where they had to go. I could just put them away really quick, and when I had the cabinet filled up and all the spaces are filled, I know my stuff to put away.
So that's pretty neat. So every Sunday now you're doing this, your cleanup days that you're in the shop. Are you not just cleaning up? Are you blowing it out or anything like that?
Yeah, so like I knew I was in the shop like every Sunday night anyway, and that was kind of like my end of the woodworking week. And that's why my shop updates are on Mondays, because normally that'd be like the end of my woodworking life for the week or whatever. So that every single time I made a habit of it, and that was probably like a year ago. And it's really easy to make a habit of it. You just keep doing it. Once you do it enough times, it's becoming something you do all the time. So every Sunday, I just knew it was, you know, it was whatever time I went in. Let's say I went in at about 10:30 at night. At 10 o'clock, I would stop working. I would go into cleaning mode, put things away, take the vacuum out, do a little vacuuming, empty the dust collector, empty the vacuum, all that stuff, all that boring maintenance stuff. So,
I usually tend to do that when I'm done with a project, but I like your thought of doing, I really like your thought of doing it weekly. Yesterday I did a little bit of spring cleaning here, kind of coincidence. That was because I got some stuff out of the shop, but I like to grab a blower and blow the shop out as well. Of course, I make sure that certain stuff is put away first, so I don't blow it away as well.
I've done that.
That has happened. Yes, me too. Yeah, so as far as hand tools, so I cheated a little bit on this one. So this is from an article in Fine Woodworking, and it's a great cabinet. I like it. After living with it for a while, I like to make some changes to it, but in order to make some changes, I probably need to build a new cabinet. But that's in the far future. But I love the drawers. Again, it's great having drawers because you get so much stuff into the drawers. And these are cool because you can pull them straight out and take the drawer, put it on your bench, have your tools there, and then come back here and just put the drawer back into its slot, and it's done. Chisels on if you've seen either one of our shop tours, you've probably seen this before, either Matt's or myself, but lots of room for the hand tools. But as you can see, I'm kind of overflowing here with tools in this section, and that's probably because I hung the cabinet a little bit too high, right? I probably should have hung the cabinet lower because I can reach up here. That's not an issue, but I don't want to have to, stretch to get something I need to get often. So eventually I'll build a new one, but this one works really well. But again, everything's got a place, and that's really important. And this I really try, whenever I take something out, to put it back as soon as I'm done using it, because the last thing I want to do is have something in here that's get dinged or dented in the shop by accidentally dropping it or putting something on top of it or any other possibility. So if you were going to do anything different in your shop, Matt, as far as organization, or maybe a project you'd want to do that you've kind of put in the back of your head, what would that be?
I have a couple actually. So the one thing that I'm probably going to do next as far as shop storage goes is I'm going to make a miter saw cart station thing, because I want to have the miter saw out so I actually use it for things. Because so many times, like I need to make a quick cross cut, I don't really want to use my table saw because I don't have a cross cut blade in there, so I end up just like not cutting it or whatever. So it'd be nice to actually have that tool available for use again. And then the other thing I really want to do, and I've been wanting to do for a while now, is to build a new hand tool cabinet. So when I built this is from the Wood Whisperer Guild. I built this in 2010, and I didn't have any of these tools back then. Anything in the middle here, I didn't have any of the hand planes. All I had was a set of chisels, and I used to have my screwdrivers in here. And I have really outgrown this thing, and it is not really, it's a nice cabinet, but it's not really made for this many tools, this many hand tools. So I really want to build something a little closer to yours, but not exactly that.
Well, no, you've outgrown what you've built, and I think for me, I don't know if I necessarily, yeah, I think I've outgrown this section of it. I got some more sections to move to, but gosh, projects. You know, I'd really like to get rid of the assembly table I have now and replace it with something that I could put a vise on.
Okay.
Yeah, I like having the bench here and using the vices I have on the bench. Well, that's another thing. I like to completely demo this bench and build a new bench, but that's, I don't know if that's organization as much as I'd really like to redo the assembly table, because I'd love to put a vise on there, because sometimes it's just nice to have a vise here as well. And then just the whole thing needs to get demoed. It's time. And it's time to rethink what I want at the assembly table too. You know, I don't have storage here for clamps, right? So sometimes there's some clamps you just want to always have. I know they're right here, but if they're right here and I'm over here and I'm putting something together, it's nice to be able just to reach for it. So there's definitely some stuff there. The lumber rack, which you see every single episode of the Matt and Matthew show.
Yep.
And my shop updates, I'd honestly like to cut this in half and get a place to store lumber here. Kind of like you, Matt, you have the shed in the back of the house where you're storing your lumber.
Yep.
On the other side of the wall, there's, well, about 20 feet, and then there's a metal shed there that just came with the house. And that's got some holes in it, so it has leaks, and I guess I could try to go fix them, but it would be really nice to get a shed over there where I could just store this lumber and reclaim this wall space for myself. And then where my garage door is, I have, is your a 2-car or a 4-car garage? So you have 2 doors and they're separate.
It's a 2-car garage. There's 2 cars, individual doors.
So 2 cars, but 2 1-car doors, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'd like to get rid of the garage door entirely. I'd like to build a new wall there and maybe do something that opens up on one side, but I like to reclaim at least half of that wall space, because one of the big things for me in the shop, and I think for you too, when we're doing all this stuff, hanging at cabinets or multiple cabinets, is that we should use the vertical space as well as the floor space to help us increase the amount of stuff we can buy, and tell our wives and girlfriends that we really need that tool and we have the perfect place to put it, and don't worry, it won't ever show up in the house. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Actually, that's a good point, because I kind of do the same thing over here. So in this bay, the only time I open this door is when I take the leaf blower in here and I blow the dust out. But otherwise, I kind of use that space in front of the door as a wall. So I have my lathe there right now, but I'd like to put another cabinet there for like the lathe stuff, my grinder, my chisels and stuff. And I've actually thought about putting up an actual wall there and maybe having it on casters or something that I could pull it away and still be able to blow stuff out the door. Because I don't use that door very often, and it'd be awesome to have that much more wall space available. Yeah,
makes perfect sense. And the funny thing though is that you see some people who have much smaller shops than us, and a lot of people I guess would probably have smaller shops than us as well. And I think we're spoiled, don't you think, Matt?
Just a touch.
But that's even what we're talking about today is even much more important for you guys who have like a 2-car garage you're sharing with your cars. It's really important to get these stations that can move around and then take advantage of the vertical space as well.
I totally agree. It's the smaller the space, the more you really need to worry about the efficiency and being able to have things in here all nice and organized and everything in their place, especially if you're going to be parking a car in the space as well.
Yes, but build those cabinets as quickly as you possibly can so that you can get to actually building some really awesome furniture for your house or to sell. Yeah, because you can make fun of me and my little MDF cabinets with my finish on them, but I screw that sucker together. I don't glue it up overnight, man. I want to be done as quickly as possible, but I want to get back to building furniture. One of the things we didn't talk about, say as far as storing stuff, is what do you do with stuff that you're working on when you're in the middle of a project? Like I have that table I showed you guys, and I also have this cart that is completely packed full right now. I don't know if we can see it on camera or not. Let me pan down. So yeah, I have this cart here, and this is great. Right now it's overflowing. That's because I finished a couple of builds lately that I've been filming, and I need to take all this stuff, put it into some Tupperware, not Tupperware, but those big plastic storage bins, label it and put it up in the attic on top of the shop. But I'm storing jigs or templates or parts here, and this is great for milling. At least for me, I know for my workflow, I can put parts here, mill them, move them around the shop, and it's just a nice, easy way to move all this stuff around.
So when I'm working on projects, I usually have the assembled piece that I'm working on the bench or nearby. If it's a larger cabinet or a larger piece, I'll have it like on the ground or on some pads on the floor, and I can put my parts into it as I go. But one thing I do that I think is probably a little more unique that I think more people should do is, as I'm doing those larger projects, I want all my pieces to have the same same color, same grain, so I like to keep all of the offcuts from that project in one place. So if I ever need a part, I can go to the offcut pile first, find something that might fit the workpiece, and take that instead of going to a new board. That way I'm more efficient with the wood I do have, and I get more consistent results from the materials. So I have a little table that used to be all full of the parts for the secretary desk, and I can finally clean that out and throw a bunch of stuff in the scrap bin. But I keep it all in one spot, and then I can just grab the pieces I need. It works out really well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point you make. Maybe that's even we can expand one day on another video for a topic, but to keep
that's a good one.
Yeah, keep all those scraps around because you never know when you want to either fix something or I don't know, you got to make a runner for a drawer or something. You might as well. Yeah. It just makes sense to try to use, especially if it's an exposed piece as well. You don't want it to go onto the lumber rack or go back to the lumber yard and buy something else because it may not match.
Yeah, and the other thing that I like about it is if I need to mill up like some new divider stock, for instance, I have some of the old divider stock, and I can actually compare exactly how thick that stuff is to one another. Or if I need to do some kind of test cuts or whatever, I've got lots of offcuts. I can grab a piece of scrap and set up a operation on the table saw or whatever, and I know that piece of stock is the exact same dimension as my workpiece.
Yes, exactly. So I think we covered a lot today, all the way from building cabinets to adding drawers, putting casters on them, to our tool cabinets, to clamp racks. So I think that was pretty good. But if you guys have any questions for us, please, as always, put them in the comments for the video, or go on our website, send us some questions as well. And as always, Matt, where can they find you?
You can find me and everything I do at my website. That's at mattcremona.com. And where can we find you, Matthew?
And you can find me at mmwoodstudio.com, and all of my social stuff's on there. And as always, we would love you guys to subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. And until next time, we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
See you guys.
See ya.